Anderson, the host of Decisions Now, which is a podcast brought to you by Evalueserve about how to leverage data and AI to improve business decisions. Today, we're joined by Ladle Patel, who is the Senior Advisor of AI and the ML Factor at Arab National Bank. He has extensive experience developing bank-wide AI strategies and implementing multi-million AI initiatives. Ladle brings a lot of valuable insights on the transformation of banking through artificial intelligence. His work spans from designing AI operating models to developing Gen AI solutions and creating centralized feature stores. He's also an active thought leader, recently having spoken at the Oracle Data and AI Forum and the LIF Middle East Leadership Roundtable in Riyadh. So Ladle, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Erin. Thank you. I'm glad to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. And today we're going to explore how agentic AI is reshaping banking operations, consumer experiences, and strategic decision-making in financial services. This is a super hot topic. Everywhere we go, everyone seems to be talking about agentic AI. So let's just jump right in. I think one thing that's particularly interesting about the area that you're in is you have the Saudi Vision 2030, which has positioned Saudi Arabia as a massive innovation hub with ambitious goals for digital transformation. So how is AI in banking specifically accelerating these national objectives, and what unique opportunities exist in the Saudi context?
So, thank you so much again for having me in this podcast. So, AI is one of the cornerstone for Vision 2030. I see it's more than the tech enabler. It's a strategic force reshaping how we serve the customers, how we run our operations. So AI adoption is expected to contribute nearly 12% of Saudi GDP by 2030. So what Saudi has unique edge is 67% of the Saudis are under 35, and most of like 97% of them use smartphones. So this young population with high mobile adoption, right, creates a fertile ground for us to do AI-driven transformations, which helps us giving a tailored recommendations to the customer and also serving the customer through chatbot, through digital banks. Additionally, what's more powerful is that government of Saudi Arabia is investing heavily in this AI initiatives. So they formed an AI authority called Saudi Data and AI Authority. They are leading the innovation. So they have developed an Arabic language model, which is being used in many of these, like bank like us. We don't have to train a separate large language models. The Saudi Data and AI Authority, so they developed a large language model tailored to Saudi dialect, which helps us in doing the innovation faster. So which we take that LLM and then embed in our application. And also Sadaya, which is the Saudi Data and AI Authority, so also leading the AI governance framework. They are putting the regulations, frameworks in place, and they are heavily investing in AI research. Further adding to this, there's a huge, massive investment in the infrastructure rollout. So Google Cloud is here in Saudi Arabia, Oracle Cloud here in Saudi Arabia. AWS is planning next year, but they have already invested huge in building the data centers here. And there's also basically all these investments creates a foundation for bank like us to build AI system at scale with regulatory alignment. So additional to this, the central bank here, which is the SAMA, Saudi Central Bank, have launched many AI initiatives and regulations, including they've given the license to the digital banks and blockchain technology and so on and so forth. So last, adding to this, there are many AI innovation and research centers at a university levels. So in a nutshell, all this ecosystem with young population, with higher mobile adoption, with authority being supporting the heavily investments on AI governance, AI research, and also the central bank, especially from a banking context, supporting this innovation makes the fertile environment for us to deploy AI at scale.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, since it seems like everything that's coming together is really towards your advantage for that innovation hub. So you have the government support, you have the universities that are coming, you have other companies like Google Cloud coming in to really invest quite a lot in this. And then you also have the culture within the country that people are mobile first. You have a younger population that's there. So everything is really thriving in this direction that you can really take a lot of advantage of it, which is really quite
True.
powerful. And you're not necessarily dealing with quite as many really ancient infrastructures. Like you guys are on the cusp of this modernization for everything.
Absolutely.
So you've developed a bank-wide AI strategy. Can you walk us through your journey of identifying and prioritizing the business opportunities that you found and the frameworks that you use to determine which use cases are going to be delivering the most value?
Sure. Absolutely. So to run a strategy, right, or AI strategy, or to have a successful AI strategy from PPT to actual execution, the first step is a strategic alignment. So AI strategy should be developed in accordance to business strategy. For example, let's take a simple scenario. So as a bank, so you will have a department as a retail banking. So what is the strategy, business strategy retail banking has? So let's take a simple goal as retail banking wants to increase the cross-selling of or the product penetration in the digital channels. So what AI strategy or the framework we should have is that business goal is to increase the product penetration. So we should have AI use cases around the business strategy. So for example, it could be a personalized recommendation to understanding the customer behavior on mobile and other channels. So this is the simplest example. So where you are aligning your AI use case to the banking strategy, right? Or the business strategy, the overall banking or business strategy. So another scenario or another example is that example as a bank, you will also have a vertical called wholesale banking. So what is the wholesale banking business strategy? So what is that they want to do this year? What is that they want to do for next 5 years? So AI use cases, AI strategy should be aligned to the AI use cases which we plug in into our AI strategy should be aligned to the wholesale banking strategy. So if, for example, if wholesale bank wants to enable relationship manager for deeper client interaction or deeper client intelligence. So we should have a use case, AI driven use case, which supports their alignment. So similarly, there will be a department or business vertical called treasury in the banking. So for example, they want to have enhance the decision making in liquidity or FX management. So we should have AI use cases which are aligned or do a forecasting of cash flow, understanding the market trends. So have a Gen AI copilot to summarize the market updates and so on and so forth. So another example, there are multiple departments in the bank or verticals in the bank. Another example could be customer service, right? And customer service wants to enhance the customer experience while reducing the operational cost. So our AI use cases should have a chatbots which are supporting this, right? I mean, agentic co-pilots which are helping this. So in a nutshell, so we should have a strategic alignment. It should not like we start AI use cases should start what is trending in the market. Rather, it should be aligned what business wants to do and then tailor use cases around them. This is the strategic alignment in the first step. The second step, what I feel is that then the value assessment. Once you identified the list of use cases which are tailoring to each of these departments, which are aligned with their strategy, now what are the use cases which are bringing the high value? Which are all the use cases which are customer facing? Which are all the use cases which are internal product innovation? Which are all the use cases which are helping the internal business? Which are use cases which are helping the internal IT? Could be business, could be support function. So, which is nothing but where is the value? Which is the second value assessment is the second phase in the framework we should have. The third, I feel like the feasibility check. Like you identified, you aligned with the business, you identified the use cases. Now you should also look at your infrastructure. How feasible is that use case can be developed in terms of data readiness, in terms of execution complexities, in terms of the team you have, in terms of the central government or the here SAMA guidelines, which are aligned, where there is less restrictions, right? These use cases can be quickly deployed. So three things, strategic alignment, value assessment, and feasibility check is what I think if you are running a bank-wide strategy, this is the framework. It's a simple table metrics where you align, jot down the use case. And when you see these reports, right, could be a Gartner, could be McKinsey, BCG, all these companies doing research, putting the use cases. Many of times what I've seen is that people just copying those use cases and then going to business with those use cases. Instead, we should do a reverse. So as a bank, we are enablers, and then we should support. The adoption will be successful when we align strategically with them. Where is the bank heading towards? What's the overall bank strategy? So use cases tailored should be tailored to the strategic alignment with the business.
Yeah, those are three really good points. And it sounds so simple when you put it in these three categories. The reality of getting all of this together, especially at an organization as complex as a bank, but any larger enterprise as well, is a very hard task to do. And you can't underestimate the amount of effort that goes into it, the number of teams you have to work with, and all the conversations that you have to have. Those are great places to start. Though one of the things that you've mentioned in the past is most banks are still in what you've mentioned as the query phase, which is like internal FAQ bots. So when someone is trying to move towards more advanced agentic AI applications like task automation and workflow integration, what are some of the key challenges that they're having to overcome in order to actually roll that out?
Most of the banks or the enterprises are in the query phase. The way I divide is that these agentic AI use cases are divided into, it's a basically roadmap for the journey, right? So most of them are in the query phase, which is basically FAQs, answering questions, could be related to the internal policies, could be related to coding assistant. So the other you have a static, it can be a dynamic too, but mostly it's a static question, the where knowledge base already built, and then you're asking question around that, and it is helpful. But to move towards, let's say, from querying phase, which is the answering, to task, which is the doing, right? A task which is doing a simple task, to the workflows, which is nothing but coordinating between different departments, to autonomous decision, right? Which minimal supervision required. So it is a complex thing. For example, if you want to move towards task, which could be a simple thing, is update. The customer asks to update my email address. In this context, the platform where the customer is posting the question to the core banking requires a tight integration, right? It requires a API integration, which are in real time. So what happens is that, the customer who is posting the question is a different technology. So we have something called fragmented technologies. So they are not one technology. So one customer contact where contact center or the customer who posting the question is a different platform versus where the core banking is different. So first task is we have something called fragmented technologies. Like technologies are different, and it becomes difficult to interact and to have an agent updating your email address in the core banking from, let's say, from mobile app to a core banking. It requires like agent updating. It requires a proper infrastructure, right? Proper hardware or proper system to be in place. So which is the doing. Like the next is the coordinating, which is a workflow. Workflow has two sides of complexity. One is from agentic side, one is from the technology side, which was there in the previous step, right? Which is the task phase. From agentic phase, it is like there are multiple agents. Imagine you want to have procure to pay in the banking to be automated using agentic AI. So it requires multiple agents, which requires a huge context, memory, like interaction between these agents. And further, these are it requires a huge maturity in your AI team or the AI platform itself who understands these technologies deeper. Of course, the legacy systems a bank has, or the fragmented technology which bank has, the different challenges, which is anyway was there in the previous step also. So imagine you have another use case where you want to have this workflow automation where, for example, a relationship manager in the bank has a call with its client tomorrow, and they want to prepare something, right, for notes for clients to talk. So in this context, like one agent has to go understand, pull all the call historical information, which is there in some other system, stored in some other system, get the client data information, their behavior information, to the news information about the client, and then coming with the points to do a cross sell requires a huge like infra or huge multiple agents interacting. Maintaining this context and memory related stuff becomes really challenging. So which means like bank or technology companies should have that deeper understanding where they are right now. And to the autonomous, right? Autonomous requires further guardrails, compliance, explainability AI. And last, I believe, is also is the adoption, right? So even if you develop all these chatbots or multi-agentic system, so the business should treat that it as not as just a tool, it as AI as a colleague. So I think change management adoption is also challenging in this context.
Yeah, I think these are great points. And one of the key things that goes into it is one, creating a culture within the company that allows you to invest and experiment because it does take an immense amount of effort and it's a mindset shift to shift over. There's also a lot of investment because this is new technology. As you mentioned, there's a lot of legacy systems that you might need to update a lot of the data that you have. You also probably need to spend a lot of money in just assessing where are you at today and what is that best business use case to go with. And then I'm sure there's going to be some trial and error that goes into it when you're building it for the first time. So all of this requires a lot of investment. So how do you make these business cases to CXO stakeholders? And as you've been working on these, are there any metrics that you're finding most effective in demonstrating ROI?
So fundamentally, like once we align strategically with the list of use cases, and when we align with what business wants to do as a bank, as the overall bank wants to go towards what's their overall strategy. So, and then we identified the list of use cases which are aligned with their vision. So first step is the half of the task is already done. It's not like we are starting the AI initiatives and then asking them to adopt. It is like we are inclined towards business, right? We are just enabling in a way that they work faster and they take decisions smarter in a faster way. So once we strategically align, so next step I feel like which will work is just create PPTs, right? I mean, show some working demos, not at like you can say at a big scale, like a production scale, simple MVPs or POCs, like simple POCs using open source. These requires, of course, agentic AI requires huge investments. But good part is that the open source community is so active that it is easy to adopt, and the frameworks what open source community has, it becomes easier for quickly to develop these use cases. So in my view, what works is that we should start once we align with the business should start developing some small POCs for using open source technologies where there is less investment. You don't need GPUs or huge infrastructure to build this agentic system, because there are concepts called SLMs, small language models, which works in simple CPUs, which you don't require GPUs or huge investments in terms of procuring the huge hardware and to have the APIs to move to the cloud. So these open source stacks, they work quite well to build small POCs to show it to the business, right? I mean, to start using it in their day-to-day work where there is less risk, where there is less decision required, right? Which is simple chatbot could be helping their RMs to save their time instead of they're spending a lot of time and preparing the client's notes. So simple agentic AI or simple chatbot or simple agent can help them in drafting these things and calculate how much time it is saving them, right? So before going to that, building these small POCs, showing them touch and feel, right? It's not just a PPT. So building the small demos, asking them to experiment in their free time, and then tailoring the demos or the POCs in according to them, and then measuring these KPIs at how much time it is saving per day, how much time it is saving the simple bot or simple agent, how much time it is saving per day. And then similarly, other AI cases like we can start with when there is a let's say if you're trying to launch a campaign to increase the product penetration, so we share simple leads where whom to target, maybe let's say 5% of the customers, where regular campaign can start, and then only 5% of the customers where AI driven campaign can start. So where we can ask the business to do A/B testing before doing a heavy investment, and so on and so forth, right? We basically doing a simple MVP driven approach where using open source stack, showing the value to them, how it benefits. And then once we get a buy-in to make it to the production grade, enterprise grade, which can be scaled to all the customers, which will have a proper guardrails, which will have a proper governance, explainability, which we require enterprise tools to go to production. So as a bank, we're answerable. So we need to have enterprise, which requires heavy investments. Once business sees the values with these small demos with open source stack, I feel that they will be in a position, they see the value itself, right? And they will be in a position to invest heavily. And for us also, it becomes easier when we launch a simple automating relationship managers prep work, which is saving, let's say, 1 to 2 hours a day. And then when we scale it to all the relationship manager in the bank, and then at a production level, imagine, let's say you have 100 RMs, and then it's like you are saving, let's say, 200 hours per day, which is they can spend quality of that time in some other work, which is like talking to the client itself or maintaining the relationship itself. Becomes easier to define these KPIs, which can be easily tracked as an ROI. So rest all, like you do, like there are many ways, like potential for each of these use cases, the leading banks or the pioneers in AI, there will be case studies. But I think tailoring to the ROIs or the KPIs which are related to ROIs according to the business alignment with these small POCs and then scaling it to the production level makes it easier.
I think making it tangible to the people who are
Tangible.
reviewing it makes a huge difference. So having that
Absolutely.
interactive demo can also help you understand, did you understand the use case and the outcomes that you were trying to solve for the business accurately? You can get better feedback when you do have something for them to interact with. And it's also never been easier to create these POCs and MVP products because, to your point on all of the open source code that's available to you, you can use a lot of the other AI tools that are available to create all of these, and then you can invest more development time to customize them as needed. You can roll them out fairly fast in potentially days rather than before it would have been potentially weeks or months prior. And one of the things that you've done with this is you've implemented the AI target operating model, and this is helping you with end-to-end management of the AI use cases. So can you share examples of how this model has transformed the banking process from ideation to deployment?
Like many of these AI use cases, right? Before that, when like I think I remember 3 to 4 years ago, so business used to heavily invest in these AI use cases or internal AI use cases, right? Business used to invest. So what used to happen is that building a simple model which is working fine as a data scientist was quite easier, but taking to that production, integrating with the existing ecosystem of the bank was like taking, let's say, developing a model itself is taking 3 months, but taking that model to production it's been more than 1 year. Still, it is under process because of the many complexities, which is technical debts, right? So writing a code and building a model in simple Jupyter notebook is quite easier, but when we want to take it to production, it's quite challenging. It needs to be baked in many factors, right? So that was the like you can say the challenge, right? Which hidden technical debts when you are going to production. So the whole objective of building this target operating model is that how do we reduce this time to deployment, time to market by, let's say, if it is taking 1 year, so how can I make it, let's say, in 2 months or 3 months, or maybe start with 4 months and then reduce this to 2 months, like for each of these initiatives. So the whole idea was to build AI targeting optimum models to reduce the model deployment cycle. And then what's the general framework to do this? Is simply in our context is, so once we identified the use cases, once we prioritize the use cases, and then, it's a list of tasks with the RACI metrics, right? Who is responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who's informed, right? So it has multiple stages, you can say. First stage, once we identified the use cases, prioritized it, and then we design the end-to-end solution at the production level, right? Who is
Mhm.
responsible in designing this solution? So, for example, it could be AI architect who is designing in conjunction with the enterprise architecture. And then the preparation of like model development, who will do the model development? So it's a data scientist who is responsible for model development. Who will deploy these models? It's ML engineer who is responsible for this. And then approval, model governance approval. Who is responsible for this model governance approval? So defining the proper symmetrics, right from ideation to use case prioritization to solution design to the data access to the model development, deployment, and integrating with the business application, and then monitoring and recycling has list of activities or the stages. And as a use case to execute these use cases, we need to have something called product owner who orchestrates these entire use cases. So putting that in a matrix and then giving the responsibilities made us like identifying this team or forming this squad in the early stage of the use case, and then making it like a template, and then giving proper alignment or proper accountability for each of these individual users made us go a little faster as a first step, and then also it helps in adopting the business. To next, what we did is reusable template and like design patterns where we can to scale it. We need to have a systematic approach where if something is already being developed, if we have already done some feature engineering for this use case, there is a similar use case, we copy the code which is already been developed. So it is like a scalable, reusable templates or patterns was one more thing which helped us in going from ideation to production in months to weeks.
Yeah.
So that's approach. It is like early. If you, those people who are in the early stage, it becomes difficult. But once you start putting this race metrics and then assigning these accountability responsibilities to each and every department, so it becomes easier from ideation to the deployment and then also the adoption.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it's aligning all of these teams together to create this, like these new models that are going in place. Ladle, just with the last few minutes that we have, I wanted to just pick your brain on looking ahead. What is the boldest prediction for how AI is going to transform banking? So, what are the current assumptions about financial services that might be completely upended by autonomous agents that banks should be looking at today to prepare for the future?
So it's tough. I feel like it is tough because the way this agentic AI is transforming, like what used to happen in, like for example, I used to do like I used to write white coding 6 months ago versus now. The way these systems have evolved, the way things are going right now is exponential. It is exponentially increasing. I feel it's difficult, but I think what I feel is next 4 to 5 years, I feel like the boldest prediction is that so autonomous AI will fundamentally redefine how we are operating right now in the bank to, let's say, in next 3 to 4 years. So the industry will shift. The financial industry, there will be a huge shift. I feel like in next 2 to 3 years or maybe 4 years, how we are doing the task right now will be shifted to, let's say, autonomous AI. So it will fundamentally redefine the banking how we are operating right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll be very interesting to see not only how it transforms everything, but also how quickly, because different countries, different companies, different people, different departments will all adopt this at different rates as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But Ladle, thanks so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much, Erin. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Decisions Now. Check out all episodes at evalueserve.com/podcast, and don't forget to subscribe for future episodes.